Thank you guys for coming out tonight for the planning and zoning meeting. We'll go ahead and get started. If I could, Commissioner Lael, would you please read the statement of purpose for us?
Okay. May our decisions today be made with wisdom, careful deliberation, and in the best interest of the city of Diamond Head. May we display patience and kindness in our dealings with each other and all who are in attendance. And may our decisions made today promote the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Diamond Head and the enhancement of the city as a whole.
Thank you. Commissioner Bennett, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Bennett.
Commissioner DeBruck,
Here.
Commissioner Hallwood. Present. Commissioner Nico. Commissioner Bennett.
Present.
Commissioner Lael. Present. Commissioner Brewer.
Present.
And Chairman Flowers.
All right, this time, do we have any, like to see if there are any adjustments to the agenda? Any from,
None here.
okay. Given no adjustments, if we could have a roll call vote to confirm the agenda?
Need a motion.
Oh,
Need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second that motion.
all right.
Commissioner DeBruck.
Aye.
Commissioner Nico. Commissioner Brewer.
Aye.
Hallwood. Aye. Commissioner Lael. Aye. Commissioner Bennett.
Aye.
Commissioner Flowers.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from prior meeting.
Second.
Commissioner Brewer. Commissioner DeBruck.
Aye.
Commissioner Nico. Commissioner Hallwood. Commissioner Lael. Commissioner Bennett.
Aye.
Commissioner Flowers.
Lynn, before we get started on this, just a couple of housekeeping items here. Make sure you have your microphones on and up close to you, because otherwise it will not pick up on the live stream. For those people that are going to speak, please speak into the microphone there and be recognized and speak. Not anything from the audience, because the microphones won't pick up on anything from the audience. So, for those purposes.
All right,
Thank you.
All right, for new business, number one on the agenda tonight, we have Bob Barber with Orion Planning. Bob, floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, Commission, good evening. Good to see you again. Good to be back before you. What I have for you is about, I hope to be less than 10 minutes, and I'll try to make it less than that unless you want to spend more time on it. But it is a zoning code update is the way I've styled it, to give you a status report as to where we are with updating your zoning code. And so for the commissioners that I've not met, I'm Bob Barber with Orion Planning Design. Our group was engaged and has been engaged in Diamond Head doing work of various sorts, primarily city planning, for the past several years, and we facilitated your Envision Diamond Head 2040 process. And it was a tremendously rewarding, it was an excellent planning process that you engaged in several years back. I won't go into that. We can talk about it another time. But the plan that was produced was intended to drive direction and policy and investment in Diamond Head. And one of the key components of the plan was updating the zoning code in sort of a comprehensive fashion to align the code with the provisions of the plan. So I've got about 10 slides that I hope will give you a sense of an overview of how the code update is being conducted and where we are in the status. And unfortunately, my technology didn't quite work right, so we're relying on Pat to advance the slides. So, just a couple of overview components. Your last code was done in 2012 in response to a comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan sets a vision, and then you code policy after that. In 2021, you adopted Envision Diamond Head 2042, which was the next iteration and update to the plan. And then now we are updating the zoning code to align with the plan. Okay, Pat? Just a couple of slides. I just threw them in there just to remind you. Hopefully you're familiar with Envision Diamond Head 2040. We're very proud of the work. You should be too. In fact, our intention is to submit it for an award from the American Planning Association, assuming the city's okay with that, for the state of Mississippi. I'll be doing that in August because it was such a good project. Go ahead. Deep into the plan, there are place types where we envisioned how you envisioned how land was to be used, how the future of the community was to be arrayed. These are a couple of places out of that place type section. And my point in showing you the slide is we take what's in the plan for the place types and translate that into the zoning code. So it goes right in. That's the way it guides the development of the code. Just characteristics of good coding, just as an overview, we look at three primary focus areas in a code when we begin to rewrite a code: the way a code's formatted, the content, the regulatory content, and the substance, and the process and administration. And you can look at the slide there, the matrix. You can see on the left-hand side what a good code does, and on the right side in red what a good code does not do. And you started 2012. It is a very solid basis of a code. We go many places the codes are just no good. We say we don't even spend time with them. We start all over. It's not the case in Diamond Head. You have a good code that serves you well, but it needs to be updated and aligned. So we begin to assess. There's 3 or 4 slides just to give you a sense of the assessment when we go through of what we need to target for updating the code. In this slide, you will see across the top the typical components of a zoning code, and down the left-hand side where those components appear in your zoning code. And if you look at the dots on the matrix, you'll see them scattered all across the map. That's one of the weaknesses of the code. It's scattered throughout, provisions of various types. So that's something that we can be very productive in updating. The next slide. This slide will give you how we approach the structure and the organization of it. In column 1 is the existing organization of the code, and like topics are in like colors, and you'll see them, colors are all scattered about. That's reflective of the scattered nature of the code. In the middle column there, number 2, we group the colors, so those topics are grouped by colors, and then we come up with a new table of contents in item 3. Reducing articles, combining, consolidating, clarifying is the whole purpose of that exercise. And then in this code, we went through, have gone through a pretty extensive use analysis and are still looking at it. Your permitted uses in the zoning code, this is your illustration of it on the left-hand side, and our analysis of it on the right-hand side. There's about 270 uses in that code, which is an extraordinary number. It's about almost 3 times what it should be. So on the right-hand side, we begin to consolidate, we begin to rephrase, we begin to eliminate antiquated uses and so forth. Right now, your use list will be down to about 150 or so, and hopefully we'll get it down to about 120. Let me give you an example of what that means. In your current code, you got pet shop, decorator shop, yarn shop, this shop, this store, that store, the other store, which are all retail sales. And we can consolidate that to a single category, retail sales, eliminate confusion, and create clarity in the code. So we're in that process. Now these next series of 3 subjects will just give you a highlight. These are just highlights of what we have done and are in the process of doing, and what you will see when we deliver the draft. First, as I mentioned, one component we look at is format and navigation. So we reorganized the articles into 10, from 19 down to 10. All the key sections are hyperlinked or in the process of being hyperlinked. The layout and hierarchy is adjusted for readability, and then we provide interactive navigation. Now that's just a function of technology advances. We can build it into the code. So that's in the format and navigation. And that will give you a kind of a compare and contrast. Your code currently is on the left. The way we're reformatting is on the right. It'll be more graphic, more colorful, more user-friendly. And hopefully, well, I don't know that you could ever call it interesting, but to some people it's interesting. And hopefully we'll make it as inviting as we possibly can to deal with. So that process is going on. And this is an example of the navigation. So the reorganized use list will be on the left. Certain uses will come with use conditions. And go backwards. And you can hyperlink the red arrow. You'll be able to click that and go to the section of the code and just right over. And in this case, it's dealing with automobile dealerships, new and used. So when you have on a use list automobile dealerships, new and used, that may be permitted in a district, but you want certain standards associated with that. You want the cars stored a certain way. You don't want them, whatever those standards are. Those are called use conditions. And so this will have a set of use conditions, and you can hyperlink very easily. That's the navigation. Now the second component, the regulatory provisions. I've already mentioned a table of uses with simplified, reorganized, clarified, shortened. The use types are streamlined to permitted and conditional only. Use conditions are expanded. Right now you've got 15 notes in the code, which are marginally effective, I would expect. These are going to be expanded to 44, which are far more effective and are under review by your staff. All right, go forward. Nope. Are you rushing me? Does that mean hurry? Oh no. Go to the one after that. I'm kidding. All right, you need to go back too. There we go, right there. The design standards are expanded. We've added districts. The Aloha district is the town center, form-based. You've looked at it before. That's added and clarified. Reduced parking ratios. Right now, the code overparks, too many parking places. We're reducing ratios. And then incorporation of recent amendments. When you finish your tree ordinance, we'll incorporate that. Your sign amendments, short-term rentals, etc. All right, now we go. And just keep going past that when I showed that. This is an example of the design standards. Right now, you probably have a list of 10 or 12, if I remember right. Those need to be expanded to address the concerns of the city with commercial design, parking lot design, landscaping, and other things. You'll have a fairly extensive section in the code, and this is where we're working on it and how we'll organize it and how the various standards will be applicable by zone. That's your Midtown, not Midtown, Town Center District. The Aloha District as form-based, intended to generate a downtown as Diamond Head has envisioned it. That map is sideways, so it extends out to the waterfront south of the interstate in various sub-districts. That's fully articulated, and you'll have the geography associated with that district. Parking, I mentioned that. I won't go through that, but except to say we want to right-size that. The parking ratios, establish some maximums. We also want to accommodate bike parking and golf cart parking, and parking lot design are all updated and addressed. And then we're about to the end. I think this is the last slide. Finally is process and administration. Clarifying the process, particularly in administering the design standards, how those will be administered and implemented for people who are building and developing and redeveloping. And then I mentioned the expansion of the use conditions. So I know that's a lot. That's an update. I've met with Bo and Pat and the attorney earlier, well, yesterday. Seems like a week ago. They have a draft, and the first internal draft. We're working to finish up a final draft so that we can introduce it to the commission for consideration and review, and roll that forward. We have targeted having that done by year. I hesitate to go on record with it, but by next planning commission is our target, barring some unforeseen circumstance. We would most likely be introducing it then. I think we're about on schedule in terms of the overall project. We really got going in January, early February, and so this is about the time frame that we scoped. I think we scoped 9 months, 9 to 12 months, I believe. So, questions, thoughts? I probably took more than 10 minutes, but there.
I do have one. Hopefully, it's a quick answer to my question.
I'll do my best.
It's insignificant right now, but
Yeah.
who's going to be responsible for the expense of the parking lots?
As the parking lots are constructed, the developer, the builder would be responsible
Right, but
for it.
the existing parking lots.
They'd be grandfathered in. And you would only adjust the parking lot when there's major redevelopment on the site, and you would implement the retrofit.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Bob.
All right. Thank y'all. If you have any questions, you can run them through Pat or contact us directly. We look forward to getting it before you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
y'all.
very much. All right, next on the agenda, we have a variance request. Teresa and Brian Ledman, represented by Amber Thomas of A-Line Construction, have filed an application requesting a variance from the zoning ordinance, Article 4.19, to allow the construction of a covered patio, 36.26 feet by 11.4 feet, within 7.9 feet of the rear property line. The property address is 7518 Augusta Way. The tax parcel number is 067M-2-35-007.1000. The property is in an R1 zoning district. The rear yard setback is 20 feet. The variance requested for the covered patio is 2.1 feet. The case file number is 2023-00282. Pat, do you have anything for us on that?
Yes, let me set the stage for you. Move that mic closer to you. Okay, thank you. First of all, let me get the legal stuff out of the way. This was advertised as required in the Seacoast Echo 14 days prior to this meeting. In fact, it was sooner than that. All the property owners within 400 square feet, 400 feet were notified via mail. So the legal requirements for this have been met. So, all right, let's take a time travel back to December of 1921. And a couple by the name of the Curvies came to us with a similar request. In fact, I believe it was the exact request to build this. And we approved that 6-1, and the council went ahead and approved it 6-0, I believe is what it is. 5-0, excuse me. Too many council people. It was approved before. The situation on here, and if you look, what page is that? Okay, if we look back, all right, let's look at the plot plan on this, back on page 9. This house was built in 2003, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, that was before the city was formed. And this back wing here, or the back bedroom there, closest to the golf course, was built within 17.9 feet from the property line, as opposed to 20 feet that our ordinance carries today. Now, this was done pre-city, so it was done by the POA or the county, or a combination of both, all right? And what they asked for, and what they're asking for today, is to draw a straight line there and continue on and put a covered patio there, okay? Doesn't make it any more non-compliant, all right? In fact, it's even less, because you see it's only 18.2 from the other side there. So that's what they're asking for. That was what was approved before, and that's what the staff is recommending that we go ahead and approve again. It met all the requirements the first time around. I took a very cautious approach in this. I probably could have granted this, given that the variance is passed with the land, okay? But the fact that it never was constructed, and a variance expires 1 year if you haven't done the construction, or you haven't done anything to take advantage of that variance, then it expires in 1 year. So I took on the side of caution and brought it back to the commission again. So I'm asking you to approve that again. The Leathermans are here if you would like to ask them any questions. But our recommendation is to go ahead and pass it again.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Okay.
We would ask for a motion to approve as requested.
I'll make the motion to approve the requested for the covered patio is 2 feet 1 inches. So I'll make a motion to pass that.
I second it.
Okay. Tammy, we have a roll call vote on?
No, you don't need a roll call, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
If we have somebody absent, so you can say aye and nays.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, and just for y'all's benefit, this is a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission. It goes to the full city council. They meet here next Tuesday at 6 o'clock, and they'll have the final decision. So this is a recommendation from them. Right.
Thank you all for coming out.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the City of Diamond Head is proposing a text amendment to the tree ordinance, Article 11. General requirements and restrictions. The proposed text amendment is to increase the preservation of existing trees. The case file number is 2023-00337.
All right, bear with me a minute. I got to shift gears here.
No worries.
You guys are moving a little bit too fast for Pat tonight, so.
Okay. This is the third time we've brought this to y'all. The first time was to introduce it, to get public input, to get y'all's input as to what you would like to see. We've gone through that process. Then we came back last meeting with, we'd taken that input and put it into, made changes to the draft. Okay. I'm sorry. We took that initial input and we came up with the draft. And then last meeting, we presented our draft proposal with the changes incorporated. And then you asked for additional changes, et cetera, or the combination of the commission and the public asked for additional changes. So just not to belabor the fact, but I want to talk about the changes that we've made since the last time you saw this. We've added 11.4.4, which says trees on developed properties that are not heritage, specimen, or significant trees will be exempt from the permit requirement. So on developed properties mean they have a house on it, okay? So those people that are not removing a heritage specimen or a signature tree are allowed to do that without a permit. They don't have to request one, okay? Second change we made, there was a recommendation to add signage to when you had a tree, it was under construction, you had a heritage or specimen tree, one of the protected trees that you were trying to protect. In addition to the fencing around the tree or the drip line of the tree, to add signage, and we have included that in the draft before you today. Okay, so there'll be signage there to properly displayed to make sure that people knew not to get inside that barrier around the drip line around the tree. Okay. Okay. I believe there was one person that said we've removed Yopon from the heritage trees, okay, because that was correctly identified as an invasive species. So we've removed that from the heritage trees. And Derek, is that it? Okay. Those are the changes that we have made there.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions this time from the commissioners?
Not yet.
All right, we'll open it up for public comment. I know we have several people that like to speak. Having trouble reading some of the handwriting.
Y'all want to make, we talked about it, y'all want to have a crack at it first to make your comments, open it up to the public, and then kick it back to y'all? Is that, or however y'all want to do it, Lynn? But up to
Do you
y'all.
want to go ahead and address?
Yeah, I mean, I still had several concerns. I know I'm not going to be a very popular guy tonight, but anyway, one of my concerns is the ISA arborist. Two things. I'm really not for having residents pay for an arborist to come in and do a land survey or a land inventory, especially if you have a lot and there's nothing but pine trees. You know, to me, that's just an expense. I think a resident shouldn't have to pay for an arborist to come say, yeah, you got all pine trees. And so, but if this does pass with ISA arborist, I think, too, we should open it up, just not restrict it to ISA arborists, because we got other qualified people that's licensed and bonded that can do the same thing, do the same tree inventory. So, you know, I'm not sure I'm in favor just to restrict it to, you know, one arborist or one type of person who can make this call. Another thing, the reason why I'm kind of against it too is the city still needs to be involved where they need to come in and inspect. I know the arborist is going to have the say when they come in and do an inventory and all that, but also too, we got to remember the arborist is working for the developer or the homeowner. So their interest, our best interest, is to the person who's paying them. So, and I'm not saying all arborists are going to be that way, but you may have, you know, some people come in and can be convinced, you know, to make a couple of small changes that in their favor. So I would hope the city, I know there was a concern about having enough staff, somebody qualified to help with that process. I understand that. But I'm not sure that we're still going to get what we need to get these permits correct and get the outcome correct.
Mhm.
So that is a concern. I don't know what the cost is for having arborists to come in and do the work. Now, I can understand for big tracts of land, if you got huge tracts of land, that's, to me, when I think the arborist would be more helpful, for the city, but not for like just a one lot, small lot or piece of property. Another thing, I got a lot of notes, so be patient.
Go
please.
ahead. Hey,
No,
that's what
please.
we're here for.
So off-site mitigations, I know if we can't replant something on the site of the being built or constructed, so who chooses where are these mitigation plants going to be? Are they going to be like city property, private property, POA property? And I have a concern, who's going to take care of these trees? Also, 11.4.3, the exception, if the property owner is notified by their insurance company that a tree is to be trimmed or removed as a condition of insurability, no tree inventory was required. I think the public utilities needs to be exempted from that, like Coast Electric, the Water and Sewer Board, and the Public Works Departments. All right. So in 11.8 or 11.8.2, the perimeter fencing located 50 feet of any building footprint. So the concern there is it's the size of the property, 50 foot out from the tree, the being protected. Not a whole lot of lots are that big, so that's going to take up a whole footprint to build a house. So I was kind of worried about what kind of effect that's going to be.
Okay.
11.8.7, the drastic changes in drainage patterns which may negatively affect existing trees shall be avoided. I think we need some kind of pre and post grading plan to enforce this effectively, if that makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing is under the tree significant, you have on here healthy pines with a DBH of 24 inches or greater. So is that saying that those trees should not be removed?
Correct.
I see large pine trees are being very dangerous and undesirable tree. So I don't know why they're even considered. But I'm pretty sure if a homeowner went to the insurance company, they could get the insurance company to say, yes, we don't want that large pine tree on your property, could damage your house. So, I just was kind of concerned about that in here. That's all I have.
Pat, you want me to address real quick?
Well, the concern about that is pine trees are part of a tree canopy, okay? And the first, in our thought process is was the first thing you do when you're protecting a tree canopy is keep what you got. And there's probably not a whole lot, well, I don't want to make that statement. I'm not sure how many there are out there that are greater than 24 inches, the caliper. Okay, that's what is that, about that? I mean, so that's a
shoulder
pretty
height.
significant tree, and that's also a tree that, absorbs a lot of water, et cetera. And if you remove that tree, then it's not absorbing the water, therefore it impacts the drainage. I mean, so that was our thought process
Right.
behind that, okay?
The other concern about that, if you remove a lot of the other smaller trees or the trees that are not protected away from that big pine tree, then you're weakening its
Absolutely.
root system. You don't have those other trees' roots
Absolutely.
holding that down.
Uh-huh.
So I think it would weaken the larger tree. And we have an arborist in there. I don't know
Yep.
if she agrees with me.
Yeah,
or
well,
not,
she's shaking her head probably. So, but, yeah, I mean, Mr. Bennett, it's funny. you know, Pat and I, probably our own worst critics as we've come up with this, and we've had some arguments, as Tammy can say. You know, she sits in there and listens to us as we go back and forth. Every one of your comments is something that we've struggled over as we've made this recommendation. In fact, up to today, where I actually said the restricting it to just an ISA arborist is maybe too much of a burden. Maybe we want to open it up. And if you look at one of the things Pat included in his packet for y'all is we have tree surgeons and we have landscape horticulturalists that are licensed by the state.
Correct.
They would be, you know, in my opinion, and maybe we'll hear from Vanessa as well as her opinion, they might be as well, that we can open that up to them. And I will say this as to your comment about who the resident hires. Certainly the professional they hire are going to have they're the ones that are getting the check, but the ISA requires that they have certain standards, just like engineers, just like everybody else. So if they've got that professional license, they've got to, they're getting paid, but they've got to apply those standards that they're governed by. And on the back end, we don't just take their word for it. The city is the one that issues the permit. So where we have engineers all the time that submit drainage plans to us, and we don't just take their word for it. We have our engineers look. So in this instance, we would, if it is a questionable thing, we would have, you know, the folks that we use in the city. We've got an arborist that we rely on right now that we would be looking to say, hey, this doesn't look right to us. He says that 100-year-old live oak in the corner of the lot is a pine tree, and he says it can be removed. Would you look at that? You know, so we will be, ultimately it would be the city issuing that permit. But I just wanted to, so the other things, I'm just adding public utilities, water, sewer, public works.
Great.
As the exception. I think that's a great idea. The perimeter fencing, maybe we can have 50 feet where it's available. If not, the minimum, you know, area that is required based on the size of the lot, we can add some language in there that can address that. But yeah, those are great comments. You read it and looked at it in great detail, so I mean, thank you for that.
I had a little help too.
Yeah, that's great. That's you know. So, but thank you.
Any further comment from the commission? One thing that Mike had touched on is the enforcement, and I'd like to see some recommendation regarding how this will be enforced, given the current staffing, and whether that needs to be addressed in the future.
Yeah, as we know, I mean, we've got, you know, our tree ordinance that we've got is not terrible, but there's some enforcement that is lacking. So, you know, that we could design here the perfect tree ordinance. Well, we can't design the perfect tree ordinance, can't write it. It doesn't exist, but we could get as close as possible. But if we're lacking the resources on the back end to do the enforcement, it's not going to be worth the paper that it's on. So absolutely, you know, we've struggled a little bit lately with code enforcement. City manager had a plan. It was working for a little while. We're struggling again. So, I mean, it is something we're looking for folks. The city council is going to have to make a commitment that this is something that they're going to fund. They're going to give the building official, the code enforcement folks, some assistance in enforcing this, because again, without that, we're going to have the same problems we have currently. So that's a great point.
Yeah, and if you remember the first time we introduced the first draft of the tree ordinance, I believe one of the first things that I said is the enforcement is the key, and funding that enforcement is the key. As Derek said, you can write all the ordinances that you want to, but if they're not enforced, then they're not worth the paper it's written on. So if you want to have an effective tree ordinance, you must have those enforcement elements, and our current building department does not have them. And I'll leave that. I also want to address something else you said, Mike, and the post and pre-drainage or grading for post. We do that now with our site reviews on the entire property, given our fill ordinance and our drainage issues that we have. So every site plan that we have has a post and pre-drainage to be looked at, and then to make sure that the grading is such that it does drive the water to where it's supposed to go. And I think one of the things that I read in here is that you don't want to change the water flow going to a tree because it's used to something, and all of a sudden if you inundate it or cut off its supply, it's going to have a negative effect and have an unhealthy tree. So yes, we're aware of that, and the building department does that currently.
All right. Any further questions, Commissioner? I'd like to go ahead and open it up to public comment at this time. Pardon me. White?
Miss White.
Okay.
Ms. Pidgey, we're very familiar.
I have a tremendous concern. I feel like when I moved to Diamond Head, it was so beautiful. We had yeah.
Sorry, before you start,
Yeah, okay.
if you wouldn't mind, state your name for the record and also your address.
Okay. Pidgey White, 6522 Mauna Loa Drive.
Thanks very much.
Well, I'm distressed because I see Diamond Head changing so very much, and I cannot be diplomatic about this. So I'm going to use a name, Elliott Homes, and you go out there. They don't even care about the current residents. I have a friend that moved down, and she moved down in around Easter. She didn't have garbage. She still doesn't have mail delivery. There's no mailboxes. She's had flat tires because of the debris and the nails. There was no internet for 2 months. It's just, they do not care about the residents as far as I'm concerned. They come in, they make a lot of money, they kill our infrastructure. If you've been there, you know about the big bumps to get in, big bumps to go out. And you were talking about that we have somebody on staff that oversees that. I don't know who that is. I mean, I don't know who allowed Elliott Homes to go in, massacre that whole area when we had a tree ordinance. If there was somebody overlooking it, and I'm so happy that y'all are saying it's going to be enforced, but it needs to be expedited now because the phases are now. Elliott Homes has 3 more phases coming. Horton has more phases. Other builders are coming in, and they're going to cut down all the trees while they can before the ordinance. So if you can hire an arborist on a part-time basis for a major project and get them to enforce it now before Elliott Homes destroys Diamond Head, because they don't care. They do not care. They don't care about the residents right now. I mean, it's very obvious. They don't care that the dump trucks come in and wreck our infrastructure. They don't care about our drainage problems. They don't care about our flooding problems. They don't care that the sound barriers. If you've noticed, I don't know if you've sat on your back porch lately, but you can hear the I-10 24/7 now. We never had that problem before. We had a beautiful community. We are part of the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and part of what we're known for are our oak trees and the beauty. But we're just going to turn into a suburb of Slidell, another cement city. We will lose our integrity. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
No, it's
Thank
great.
you.
It's great comments. And I do, one thing you just said about getting arborists or hiring one part-time and get this thing done quick. I hope we do get this done quick because we, like you said, we don't need Elliott going in and destroying another phase of trees before we put something, in writing. So.
Well, you want to hear an irony. Okay, one of the areas that's going to be massacred again is called the Diamond Head Preserves. So we need to preserve Diamond Head. Thank you very much for saying that. But I think we just need to expedite it, and I know y'all have to vote on it tonight, and then it has to go to the city council. But when is Elliott coming with their big dump trucks? They don't care. They're just going to kill it all, and they don't care. Make a lot of money, and they're out of here.
All right.
Okay,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any opinions.
Hey, Pat, can I ask a question? She made notation about people moving into homes without having mailboxes or proper mail delivery. Isn't that a requirement to get a CO?
Bo. Need to get that. Yes. Yeah, if you would.
So do they not have cluster boxes right now?
Well, they didn't.
Repeat what you said.
The Postmaster General is now requiring all new subdivisions. You can't have a mailbox. It has to be cluster box unit, and they already started developing these subdivisions and had the infrastructure and started building houses before they realized this. That's why they had to go back and replat Diamond Head Lakes Phase 1 after they had already started putting houses in there, because they had to change one lot to a cluster box unit. And they have recently got their plans approved to build the cluster box unit, so they have to build that now because they were putting up mailboxes, and the postmaster made them take them down, and they're actually having to drive to Bay St. Louis to get their mail right now.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's your call.
I know, she's not complained. My friend has not complained. She's so happy to move to Diamond Head. She came here because it was Diamond Head Lakes. Diamond Head's such a beautiful community. She knew people were friendly, and she does not complain. I'm the complainer. But I am complaining about this because without the post office, without the delivery, she moved into a new house. She was ordering mattresses and fake fireplaces and liquor cabinets, and they were all delivered at my house in the rain. We had to get a truck. This is over since Easter, having to come to my house and then get a truck and move it to her house. This is how, if Elliott Homes is not taking care of them, we'll let them deliver everything to Elliott Homes Open House or whatever it is, and then they deliver it to the people that they just made $320,000 from, you know? Plus, she has a porta potty across from her house with flies that has been there since Easter. Okay, that's enough.
I just thank you for that explanation, Bo. I didn't realize that they had converted everything to cluster box requirements.
Well, it was a surprise to us, too.
Yeah, because normally that's if you can't get delivered, you usually can't get a CO for it. So
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
All right. Next, Jimmy Glass. If you would state your name and then address for us, please.
Jimmy Glass, 736 Kahala Drive, which is kind of scary because I'm going to be public enemy number one. I'm vehemently opposed to this tree ordinance. I think it's a major overreach. I was pleased to hear about Mr. Bennett's concerns because those are very much in line with mine. The vast majority of us are Republicans. We believe in private property rights, and we shouldn't be creating laws that restrict private property for the benefit of other people. So there were a lot of issues I had with this particular law. The drainage issues. If we use that as justification for this law, it unequally puts the burden of fixing the drainage problem on people who have undeveloped lots or who have a side yard with trees on them. If we want to fix those problems, let's fix those problems, and let's do that as a community. Let's share the costs across the board. If you want to protect trees, then as a Republican, I would suggest that you buy the land with those trees, or that we as a city invest in the Diamond Head Preserve, and we can protect large swaths of those without impeding on the rights of a property owner. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I feel like I'm a vegan protesting inside of a steakhouse here because I understand it's really your mission to make recommendations on restrictions for properties, and politically I'm really opposed to a lot of these where there's no benefit for the property owner themselves. So you're taking away from somebody for the benefit or the perceived benefit of the community, but the property owner themselves are in the best position to see whether or not they need that particular tree. Building homes is not just a reason why you would want to clear a lot. Perhaps you want to put a pool in, you have a croquet field, or you want an area for your kids to run and play ball in, right? Yeah, and the way it's currently written, I mean, if I go to, with the exception of what Pat said, the new, I forgot what number it was, but restricting it for developed lots. But even grinding a stump, you'd have to go get an arborist to come out, pay. Vanessa told me it's about $125 for one tree, and depending on how many trees you have, it'll go up from there. Obviously, acres of land will cost tons of money. And then if you're dealing with a drainage issue with a subdivision and with these big corporate entities who we want to attack, I would suspect we have a drainage plan, right? When they go in, there's some sort of site study that's done, and we're like, hey, you can't do that on a case-by-case basis because that's going to affect your neighbors. So they need approval to do that first. We don't need this large ordinance that says, hey, nobody can cut down trees because we love trees. I think the property owners should do that. And then, yeah, thank you guys for donating your time to do this. You know, I don't ever come up and talk about politics or whatever face to face. I'm not involved in it. I like to opine in the background, but I'm pretty passionate about this one. And we need to be careful not to take on some of these big social issues of save the earth, save the tree from a local standpoint. You know, we don't save that for the liberals in Washington. Thank you. That's all I got.
Thanks for your time. All right. Howard Thickman.
Howard Thickman, 893 Carlisle Street, Diamond Head. If you allow a contractor to have an arborist to decide what trees stay and go, you're letting the fox guard the hen house. I mean, that makes no sense at all. Either the city has to do it or you all have to do it. Have an inspector go around and check these lots. What the lady said about Elliott Homes, you go over there, clear cut everything. And he would have done it whether you cared or not because we don't have any rules and nobody watching it. So that becomes a real problem. And they're cutting down trees like crazy. You don't know what they're cutting down. We don't know because nobody's watching. But if you let an arborist for the contractor do it, you're going to lose everything. And the other thing is if you let the contractor usurp your power, then you're doing a disservice to the city and the residents of the city that you're representing. You have to keep control of these contractors, and you're not going to do it by having a contractor's arborist or whoever say this tree is good and that tree ain't. It's going to have to be up to y'all. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Dan Biggs. I'm sorry, I may not have gotten your name right.
She looked at it.
It's Vaughn Biggs.
Vaughn, okay.
It's 63720 Diamond Head Drive North.
Thank you.
And y'all have answered a lot of my questions. And first of all, thank you so much for the work that you've done for this. So I have written on my page here my questions, and I'll just move on past the ones that you answered. But on the second page of the ordinance 1171, this is a question for you. For each significant and/or specimen tree retrained, extra credit shall be available, etc. And I'm fine with that until I get to the last part. The total DBH of all significant and/or specimen trees retained divided by the rate of mitigation of 5 inches. Can somebody please explain that to me?
Need a lawyer to
You need a lawyer that understands that to decipher it. But I mean, as you all know, we took this from Oxford originally. And Pat and I, we argued about this, I think every time we get to that. Pat says to me, "What does that mean?" And I say, "I don't know, we'll figure it out." We even thought, he had me convinced to remove 11.7.1 and 2 over my objection. And about halfway through the conversation, I said, "Hey, I've got an idea, let's remove it," and he objected. So we have struggled with that one. The way I look at it is this, is that if you do have a significant or specimen tree that you do retain, you get credit for that, and that you can remove a certain number of other trees that are not in the protected class. To which Pat said, "Well, you have to keep the protected trees anyway, so why would you get credit?" And I said, "Yeah, I need to call the Oxford attorney and ask why they did that." So, yeah, Vanessa, when you get up there to speak, if you've signed up to speak, I may ask you about this one. But it is something, my goal with this, and we did take out several things that were very confusing from the Oxford ordinance, because we know we're Diamond Head and we wanted to simplify this. We wanted everybody to understand this, okay? And so we really are trying to streamline it. This does complicate it. I have no issue with taking it out. You have to keep, if the tree is protected, you have to keep it. The goal here was in one of the initial goals of this was to preserve the tree canopy. And so I think that was that's where some of this credits for retention come in. But I'll defer to somebody that knows more about trees than I do as to how this would really work.
Okay, well, I'm glad it wasn't just me then.
It's not just you. We're all a little confused by that one.
Derek
Okay.
and I, we've discussed this in length. And it goes contrary to what Mr. Barber from Orion Planning was saying in simplifying the code. This certainly doesn't simplify.
Yep. And if you don't understand it, I typically would say get it out. And, so I would have no objection to getting it out.
Well,
Yes.
You did a good job of simplifying it. I give you credit for that.
We
you.
tried. I mean, we want it to, it's got to be user-friendly. I mean, to the point that the gentleman made, I mean, you don't want to make this, there is a fine line here that you're trying to reach. Property owners have to have an expectation. If I own a lot in Diamond Head and my family's owned it for years, why can't I build a house on it? Everybody else has built a house on it. We've got more rules and regulations in place now than when many of the homes in Diamond Head were built. Many of them were built prior to the incorporation. So now we've got a fill policy, we've got a stormwater ordinance, we've got a tree ordinance, we've got setbacks, we've got you name it. The drainage is something, and again, it is something that as a city we have to address drainage. And we're trying not to put that burden on just these new properties. And we've gotten millions of dollars in grant money to work on drainage in the city, so it is a big concern. And we're trying, but you have to have an expectation. And as Bob told me, and it was like a light bulb moment a few weeks ago, everyone knows a tree and a house cannot exist in the same space. So the reality is, as long as we allow homes to be built, trees will come down. But how can we do that responsibly, respecting rights of property owners, but also preserving the quality that we've got here in Diamond Head and making sure that we do the best that we can to protect one of our biggest resources. So not everybody's going to be happy when we get a final version of this. But I agree with you. If this is confusing, my recommendation would be get it out. I don't think it adds anything to it.
Well, I'll leave that up to you guys, then I won't comment
I agree.
on that further. Okay,
Good point.
okay, my big issue though is on page 4, 11.11.1. where it says, then any permit application for the site shall be denied up to 24 months and a fee of $500 per acre or $1,000 for each heritage tree. My personal opinion, as you know, that just isn't enough. If they want to take out 10 or 20 trees, so what's $10,000 or $20,000 to them? Nothing for a developer. I think that really needs, that's just a penance. I think that really needs to be much greater than that if we're really sincere about protecting some of our really nice, big, beautiful trees. And I have to agree with what the last man said. If we don't do this quickly, it's a moot point because they're all going to be gone anyway if we don't get moving on this. So I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I hope this gets passed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any further comments from council? The commission, sorry.
All right, well, the time has come then.
All right.
And so where we are now is, given the input that you've received today, you need to make a decision of whether you want to pass the amendment as the ordinance as is, text amendment as is, tree ordinance as it is. Do you want to amend the ordinance and pass it? Recommend it. I use the word pass. The only people that can pass it is the council, okay? This is a recommending body. So you recommend it as is, recommend it with modifications. I guess you can say we don't recommend it and don't like it at all, or you can remand this back to the staff to make changes that you desire over and above what have been mentioned here. And that would delay it for another month until our next meeting in August, which would mean the first Tuesday in September, it would come before the council before a vote. So those are the kind of options those are the options that I see. Derek?
Yeah, and the only thing I would say is, I mean, I'm not in favor of delaying it. I'm also not in favor of rushing it. I mean, this is, you know, we do have a tree ordinance currently in place. It does not allow clear cutting. We've got, whether we have this in place or the current tree ordinance in place, we've got to do a good job with enforcement. By my count, I've got about 7 recommended changes from Mr. Bennett that I quite frankly agree with I think all of them. I'll double check, but if not all, most. I've got one recommended change from Ms. Biggs that I agree with, removing 11.7.1 and 2. Penalties greater for the removal of trees without a permit would be her second. So we're looking at about 9 or 10 changes. We could get those done rather quickly and get this back to you, or I'm up to suggestions. I mean, you guys can say, hey, I recommend we pass with, and you guys just make these changes and get it to the council, or do you want to see the changes before you recommend it to the council? Maybe you guys want, it's time for you all to kind of debate that now.
I was wondering, what are the odds when it gets before the council that we get some extra funding to do these things?
My crystal ball is very cloudy with that.
That's what I thought.
The council has the power of the purse.
And they are. I mean, we've had a code position open and being advertised for a long, long time. So we've got some of the resources already in place, just waiting on that person. But we do need additional.
Thank
And
you.
of course, the commission can make a strong statement. Although you don't have the power of the purse, you can make a strong statement that in your recommendation that enforcement is a key. And heretofore, we have not had the resources, staff has not had the resources to carry out enforcement of this. So it would be highly recommended to provide those resources. Or however you want to phrase it. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But you can address that situation.
You spoke for me.
I spoke what?
You spoke for me, so.
Oh, is that okay with you?
Mm.
Okay.
The words you chose were well chosen.
Derek, the suggested changes that obviously you made notation of, and I think everybody's made notation of here, would we need to read those into record prior to adopting this as it reads now with the recommendations provided by council?
Yeah, I mean, and some of these, some of these need a little massaging to get it worded.
Verbiage, right.
Which, I mean, you can say, for example, hey, let's not restrict it to ISA certified arborists. Let's allow tree surgeons and landscape horticulturists as well to be qualified to do this. You could say that, and I think that's easy. We could get that done. But some of the other things, maybe just, maybe we could. Maybe you could say, we could entertain a motion to approve it with the following amendments. And, I've got a summary of them. We could read those into the record. If you guys are confident enough that we can make those changes, it will go then before the council on Tuesday. If you think we need to get it out there and pass it around and do that one more time, then it would come back before y'all.
Any other questions, comments?
So for 11.11.1, which you spoke about, so you are saying you would increase the fine
I mean,
and leave the permit denied for up to 24 months and increasing the fine for. Sorry.
Yeah, if that's what you all suggested. Now, we're a little limited. I mean, we've got misdemeanor authority in Diamond Head, so we can't fine people $1 million and throw them in jail. We don't have felony penalties, but I think $2,000 is something that we can fine folks up to generally.
Is up to 24 months enough?
Again, that's up to y'all. I mean, what I did there is, Oxford had this sliding scale of if you never had a permit, it was one period. If you did have a permit, but you didn't do it right, you had another. Or if you didn't even apply, you had another penalty. And I just kind of averaged it all.
Okay.
So you do get so it is a 24-month. We're not approving any permits. Your development is dead unless you then come up with this plan to reforest your lot that meets our standards that are set forth in the ordinance. So, but that's up to y'all. I mean, Oxford's got it up to 36 months.
This would mainly affect developers, though.
It would.
Correct.
Well,
Not property owners of small lots, because you got per acre of trees cleared. So there's, I don't know of any lots that's an acre.
Well, but if it's less than an acre, I mean, it's a fine of up to $500. $1,000 right now for every then heritage tree removed, and whether it's a lot or a subdivision, you're not getting a permit to develop it for. But we've seen that. We've got several lots. Bo can speak to that. We've got several lots where folks have violated the fill ordinance, and they're under a stop work order. And so I know the residents are still looking around, going, "What's going on?" Well, they're under a stop work order. The next step for them will be bringing them to court for violating the stormwater ordinance, the fill ordinance, whatever it may be. So that's a separate kind of procedure. But right now, they are issued a stop work order, and that's essentially what this is. Is it would be a 24-month or 36-month stop work order.
And would that be on all development, or would that be specific to whatever development they were currently working on?
That particular property. So if you're building 3 houses in different places in Diamond Head, this one property would be stopped. Your others, if you had followed the rules on your others,
But if I have a plot that's been approved for 30 properties, and I violate this and get a stop work order, wouldn't that institute a stop work order on all 30 locations?
Correct. That's a
If,
development,
if
yes.
it's a development, a subdivision, yes, you're correct.
Good, good, good. Thank you.
Okay, and I want to clarify something. This is a fee, not a fine.
Fee.
Fines are judicial system. This is a fee that would be authorized for the city to charge this person, this individual, this developer.
And like a lot of our ordinances, this is just one of the remedies the city would have. We could also bring them to court for simply violating the ordinance, you know, so that's something else. And we have, you know, as code enforcement was back on track for a little while, we are bringing, the goal is to bring these cases to the municipal court judge and start fining people for violating fill ordinance, stormwater ordinance, tree ordinance, all those types of things. So that's the goal, but we just need those guys that are out there to bring the cases to us.
One thing we didn't do, and we told Vanessa, who's an ISA certified arborist, that she could come up and give her views on this. And pardon me for not. I told her she didn't have to sign up, that we would call her up, because I think one of the questions she could answer. So if it pleases you.
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, we'd appreciate you sharing that with you.
Yeah.
My name is Vanessa Benson. I'm an ISA certified arborist, and I was resident of Diamond Head for about 17 years, and I recently moved to 1395 Kildalil Road. Right behind Diamond Head, I bought 30 acres of trees. So the question that the lady had about the diameter, replacing the diameter.
Yeah.
I do think when I read it, it's extensive. You know what I mean? Because that's going to be a lot. In my opinion, 1 or 2 trees in like 2-inch diameter to replace a tree would be a good idea. You know, but not that much, because that's a lot of money. I know a 2.5-inch diameter tree, live oak. At 7.5 feet tall is generally what other cities require. I know Bay St. Louis does, and I think Waveland as well. It's just, that's a lot of money. That's like $200. It can go between $157 per tree to $350 per tree. So I do think that's a lot of money for someone, especially like. The thing is like, if it's a sick tree, like, what's the reason why you're removing the tree? Are you removing the tree because it's a liability? Your insurance is, yeah, you shouldn't be penalized for that. And that's my opinion. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. You know, it's a big penalty if you are having to remove a tree because your insurance is requiring it. Or if the tree is maybe your insurance isn't requiring it, but you did have an ISA certified arborist come out and look at it, and they said, you know, that tree does pose a danger to your home. It's 10 feet away from your home, and those trees get really large. That's a lot of upkeep for a tree like that, you know. And then when we live in a hurricane-prone area, so, you know, you got to take a lot of things into consideration whenever you think about that. There's trees that are unhealthy, they're sick, they haven't been properly maintained, and those types of things. It's not always your fault. Sometimes you moved in and the tree was already established. So, you know, I mean, yeah, I think it's a bad idea to fine people that much, because that's the cost of trees like that. Just for me dealing in that type of work every day, I have to, you know, we do planning and stuff like that. So I know the costs that people do have to incur. Was there any other questions?
But what about the comment I made about the 25-inch or 24-inch pine tree? You know, and I made the comment about if you remove the other trees, and that root systems may be holding down the root of the pine tree. Is that a true statement, or is that?
it depends on how close they are, absolutely, but because roots can go out almost double past the drip line, you know, so you're always going to be affecting if they're in close proximity, you know, but there is a certain amount, and what they had in the paperwork that I read that says you have the little green box. So, and that's true. Outside the green box, there's a little more you can do with the trees if it's outside of that perimeter. I don't remember, because all trees are different sizes and stuff, so it's going to go by just under your drip line. That's where you really, really want to protect your trees. And so outside of that, you don't have to take as much caution. You just want to be cautious, but you don't have to worry over it as much when it's outside of the drip line. Does that answer your question, sort of? I hope.
She was referring to page 40 in your packet.
I'm sorry, I didn't know
and that's correct. And that's the brochure from, I think it's a combination from Mississippi State Extension Service and the Mississippi Forestry Commission. They put this pamphlet out as far as when you're doing construction around the trees, here's how you protect them. And so that was on page 40 when she was talking about the green area there.
And going back to what you were saying about how much it costs to, you know, for these trees, but in that case, if it's a tree they have to remove because it's sick, or, I mean, they would be able to.
You don't have to mitigate that.
Right, okay.
Right. That's written in the ordinance. Unhealthy trees, you don't have to have mitigation. A tree where the house pad is going to be, where the house foundation, you don't have to mitigate that. Let's see, what else? Where a street's going to go.
Sidewalks.
Drainage easements,
Okay.
et cetera.
Vanessa, you heard the comment from Mike about the requirement of having an ISA certified arborist. What's your thought on opening that up to a tree surgeon or someone that's licensed by the state of Mississippi in addition to that? Do you think that that's something viable?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a licensed tree surgeon as well, and I think they're very important. I mean, they know all the proper cuts and things for tree preservation. So there's things, so Mississippi's requirement is their license is the tree surgeon license, and their training is in the proper cuts. That's why it's called tree surgery, because it's just like a fancy term for, you know, pruning and things. So they learn how to do that. You get more in depth with ISA certified whenever you're having to like prune, well, diagnosis and then prune like roots and things like that. So, but as far as just like canopy and stuff, I mean, yeah. And then of course, if they know the if they know the different species and they can identify the species, then, you know, they're licensed in the state of Mississippi to do certain things, as long as they stay within, I guess, their what their education is. I think it's fine. Because there's actually not very many ISA certified arborists. I mean, the paper that you put out, and a lot of people that work like for the Mississippi State University and stuff like that, they don't go out and help with individual things like that. So it would be a lot on just ISA certified arborists to do something like that. But a license, I mean.
And maybe you can speak to it. So if somebody is licensed, I mean, yes, they're getting paid, but, you know, by the owner, but at the end of the day, they've got standards, they've got their licensing board, they've got their reputation. I mean, they've got to make, they're not going to make a recommendation, you know, to cut a healthy tree down that's not in the footprint of the home. I mean, we have engineers right now that are licensed. I mean, yes, they're hired, they're paid by the people they work for, but they have standards that they have to. So, I mean, can you speak to that a little?
One other note to that, I think it would speed up the permitting process too.
Yeah, and that was one of the things. You know, the way we do it now is we have an arborist that we call, you know, as we need them when someone applies. we wanted it to be to help with the process, not put all that burden on the city. You know, there's people out there that can do this, but that the city, because we don't have the money to have a full-time arborist on staff. So at least we've got somebody that's a professional that can say, hey, this is right. But on the back end, you know, we're looking and we ultimately approve. And when we have a question, we will then consult either our arborist that we have part-time or someone like you to say, hey, this looks weird to us. Is this right or wrong? So we will still be checking it on the back end.
Vanessa, I have a question. So Mississippi doesn't license a state arborist.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So how, but if you call yourself and advertise yourself as an arborist, you must get a license from the state. Is that correct?
No. Our neighbor, Louisiana, they have a requirement that to work in their state, you be a Louisiana licensed arborist. Okay. That's not ISA certified. That's a step, a little below that.
But they have a process where you do some testing or experience,
Correct.
et cetera, and
They're
you get a license.
actually considered an arborist.
Right.
Okay, a licensed arborist. They're licensed to work on trees in their state. ISA is licensed to work on trees anywhere in the world.
Right.
Okay, and so that's the difference. Okay. And then Mississippi, ours is just a tree surgeon license. That just means, as far as I know, pruning and those types of things. They don't diagnose. They don't do diagnosis and things like that. I'm sure they can do tree identification if they're working with trees,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as diagnosing and things like that, no. I would believe that would be a Louisiana licensed arborist, or a few states have that where they have their own requirement. Like the reason why I had to go take a test there is so I could it's their laws. I had to learn their laws protecting trees.
And so I think that's why what we've seen, in cities that have these provisions in their ordinances, we don't have a state certified arborist, so that's why we defaulted to the ISA.
It makes it hard, yeah.
Okay. Any further questions?
And I just wanted to say that, the gentleman back there that was talking about, ISA certified arborists and stuff, and accountability, in my opinion, is very, very important when it comes to what you're doing with trees. And I just see that there's not very much accountability, when it comes to trees in this state. I'm not knocking Diamond Head. I think Diamond Head's actually trying to lead the way in something like this, because I've actually spoken with the commissioner and he said, they should take care of that on a local level. So it does make it hard when you don't have a law for an arborist. So then that's when you put people in situations like this and trying to figure out what you're going to do with trees, because they are so important. But I had said that many times. I think a committee of people helps. Not that my opinion matters, but this is just me working with trees every day, working with people that work with trees every day. So I see the people on the ground, and I think that accountability with a committee, that way one person can't get paid off and say, oh, you can do whatever you want, or, make exceptions to the rules and stuff. And that's why I've suggested a committee before, just because, it makes it a little bit more difficult to do things kind of on the back end instead of truly preserving our trees.
Shady, no pun intended.
Oh, that was bad.
Let the record reflect that pun was intended. And I'm mad because he beat me to it.
So what you're saying, and I think that went back to, I don't remember who said this, but I know Mr. Thickman had mentioned that the final approval process would have to be from the city, not just accepting what was recommended by someone. Now, my concern with that is that we don't have that knowledge base. Now, that's not to say we cannot get it, but I believe that would be a key factor in the effectiveness of enforcement, is to have that knowledge base, whether it's on a contractual basis with a professional or bringing one in-house. And of course, that would be up to, whatever the funding is for that, all right? I don't get into those decisions.
Yes.
Okay.
And-
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So if we decide to say that either way, we decide on this, we could always change our mind later, right? If we decide to say we want you to have the certified arborist, wouldn't it be better to go ahead and go with the harsher, and then we could always maybe ease it back a little bit if we needed to? If it wasn't working out, if they could, if,
You could look at it both ways. You could always say, let's open it up to those other folks, and if it looks like we're having problems, maybe we go the other way. Or you could say, let's start strict and go the other
Okay.
way. But you're right. I mean, you guys can amend it. I mean, we're gonna find that when this thing hits the road, who knows? I mean, the goal is that it'll work better than what we've got, but if it doesn't, we may be back to the drawing board. I mean, again, there's no perfect ordinance, and as you can see, we're gonna have some folks that are gonna say, well, you should have done this, you should have done that, but, so yes, we will have the opportunity to amend it and see how it's working.
Our ordinances are not set in concrete.
right,
They are living, breathing creatures, all
Yes.
right? And you put something on there and you say, oh, well, this is not really working out, or we're not getting the desired effect, or it's unworkable, or whatever the situation is, or something new comes by, and you can't anticipate what's coming out in the future. So the ordinances are made so that you do that. You go back through this process that we're going through, text amendment to the ordinance, bring it before the Planning and Zoning Commission, have a hearing on it, get input from the residents, okay, or the stakeholders, and then make a decision, then it goes to the council for approval. Okay? So, yes, you would still have that going on. We need to, I would say at a minimum, for developers, so that would be, what's a developer? 10 or more lots or acres or whatever it is. But let's just say development, and we know what that is. It's in the subdivision regulations, okay? That we would use an ISA certified arborist, or that the developer would use an ISA certified. But again, it's like when they're developing their plot plans for their subdivision. We have to verify that it meets all the requirements, the lot size requirements, it has the easements, property, the setback, you can fit a house on there, et cetera, drainage, et cetera, retention, pre and post runoff. We have to verify all of that. Now, their engineers are putting that together, but we verify that. So something similar to that with this ordinance here, that the final decision maker is with the, let's just say, the building department, the building official, or whoever his designee is. Make sense?
Actually, I have that written down. That was one of the recommendations that I had thought about, is to use a ISA certified arborist for large tracts of land or
Right.
larger developments
Developers.
other
Right.
than single residential.
Right.
I just made a note about that. I think that might be a good compromise. And then you can have a licensed Mississippi tree surgeon if it's just one lot. You know, there's- So we've got even more changes, so, I mean, I don't know. What do y'all think?
Hold on just a second.
Mr. Thickman?
Would you like to speak again, Mr. Thickman? If you could, please come to the microphone.
I'm listening to y'all, and it's making it sound like you need an arborist every day, all day. If you know this subdivision is going in, or this developer is building on this set of land, call it an arborist, let him, her go through and mark the trees that need to be preserved. They could probably do it in a day. I mean, you know, depending obviously on how big it is. And then you're done. So you're only, quote, renting an arborist, and y'all are making it
That's the
sound
way we
like
do
you
it
need
now.
an arborist 24/7, which, you know, I don't think Diamond Head is, I know it's growing, but it's not growing that fast, that you couldn't, you know, have an arborist come out to do this subdivision in a day or two and just pay him for that day or two. And then, you know, 3 weeks from now, they decide on another subdivision, call the arborist, have him come out and just do that. You don't have to have one 24 hours a day on call.
Right, but to do an inventory on a large plot of land like, say, Diamond Head Lakes, that's gonna take weeks probably, if not months.
For them to build,
No, for them to do a tree inventory.
really? Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Thank you.
Well, but you bring up, and I think that's what we were talking about here.
Yes.
Provide the resources, however we do it. All right, if it's in-house on the payroll, or if it's a contracted. I mean, today
Right.
we do it contracted. We contract with an arborist to go out, and any tree that's protected, lazy magnolia.
Oh, Lord.
What is your mind on?
Must be bear time.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Southern magnolia and live oaks. If you want to cut one of those down, and it's greater than 6 inches in diameter, then we contract with the arborist to go out there and verify that it's necessary to be cut. So, similar to that.
So can I make a motion?
You can do whatever you'd like.
Please.
I'd like to make a motion to deny the tree ordinance as written and to go back and make the recommended changes and then revisit again. Now, I hate putting this off more, but I want to make sure we get this right.
Understood.
So I understand the recommendation is to remand this back to the staff to incorporate the changes that were suggested by the Planning Commission and come back during the August meeting with the revised ordinance for consideration to recommend to the council.
Correct.
Okay.
Have a second?
Discussion.
Any discussion at this point? All right.
Don't be shy. State your opinions.
Okay, so maybe this is a question or discussion. So the reason we want to do that instead of making the recommendation with the changes we discussed tonight, wouldn't it be
Well,
a quicker?
well, I know what you're saying, but we're going to make,
Okay.
yeah, there's a lot of changes. We're going to make sure it's written the way we discussed it. Because if not, then something could be written in there and we're like, oh, no, that's not what we wanted, so.
Okay, is
Yeah.
there a way?
Mike's just saying he doesn't trust us, but no, it's okay. No, no. I mean, there's a lot to kind of change here, and it may, some of the changes may impact the way the whole thing reads. We may have to do some other tweaking, so we're going to redline it and put those changes in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's taken a little bit more time. We still have a tree ordinance in effect right now. We still have the two issues that haven't been solved, and one of them is enforcement. So we got to, and we've been talking, we're aware that developments are not gonna wait for this new tree ordinance. So we still have rules in place, and we're working hard. We're talking every day about ways. And so when, we're getting calls from residents when they see lots cleared, and and again, this tree ordinance, people will violate it. And when they do, this is what, we're going to be bringing them to court. We're going to be fining them. We're going to be issuing stop work orders. And, but the goal is to get folks out there that know, hey, if you cut a tree down in Diamond Head, you are going to be stopped. You're not going to be, there's going to be consequences.
Right.
So, a protected tree.
And I think we all understand the urgency of it.
Yep.
But we do want to make sure what we're doing is the right thing. So, do we?
All in favor? Derek, do we need to read these changes that we're planning on putting in at any point in time, or how will they be represented in the new document?
So what I'll do is, I said, I'll redline all the changes that I've got, and I've made notes that I've talked from Mr. Bennett and everybody else that has made those changes, and I'm gonna redline them in there. And if I take anything out, like we talked about taking out the mitigation part, I'm gonna redline that. You'll see this, the next version of this that you will see will be a red line version, but you can say at that next meeting, we adopt the red line version.
Okay.
And so you'll know exactly what was added, exactly what was taken out. And that'll be there for y'all. So if there is no further discussion, then we just need a vote on that motion to kick it back to us.
Do we get a second?
We did.
Yeah.
Sue did second.
All right. We get roll call vote on that.
Commissioner DeBrose,
Aye.
Commissioner Brewer,
Aye.
Commissioner Harwood,
Aye.
Commissioner Lael, Commissioner Bennett,
Aye.
Commissioner Flowers, and Commissioner Nico.
So we will have that to you at the next council meeting,
Thank y'all.
P and Z meeting. In fact, we'll have it to you, and we'll have it to you at least a week in advance, like we've done with all of these. So in fact, it'll be put on the, nobody cares anymore. It'll be put on
the website.
Website. The public can look at it. Y'all will have an opportunity to look at it. If you, keep talking to us about it. We have not shut down the comment phase on this.
Okay.
And my last question was, why are we only defining that, or it's not a fine, it's a fee, right? The developer, but,
Please step to.
no, I'm pretty loud, and it's over, right? My
No,
name is
actually,
Sharon
it's not.
McCulley.
No, it's not. Still not up on the agenda.
Sharon McCulley, 6416 Comay Drive. But the way he said that at the last statement where I raised my hand was, yes, we're charging a fee to the developer, but the developer is hiring people that may not be aware of this either. But we sit with somebody that would cut one down if he's aware of it too, and he's charged a fee for doing something he shouldn't be doing in this city, then it's less likely you're going to get a developer to have someone come in and cut the tree, because he's also owning up some of the responsibility. That's all. You follow what I'm saying?
So holding the person that actually does the cutting responsible in addition
Also,
to the
yes.
And it's something we thought of, because as we saw with the Elliott Homes, there was a tree survey done. I mean, there was, the rule was followed up to a point, and what we were told is the message never got to the guy with the bulldozer.
But
so again, and there is some provisions in there for
And I know I'm crying over Elliott Homes, because I sit on Comay. Comay was and I don't know how long y'all have been on this board, 7 homes flooded on Comay Drive just a year and a half ago, or was it just? Last year. And that is from Turnberry, all of the construction there. Turnberry was done relatively nicely. There's still a lot of clear cutting, but the clear cutting that's going on up there, when we have another rain like that, my house just barely missed. I have 3 foot of chain wall, 3 foot of chain wall on the back of my house off that creek. I had 10 inches left before I was going to get flooded. My neighbors weren't so lucky. We're talking about a little $10,000 fine for somebody building a house where these people have over $10,000 just to repair what's in their houses. We're not thinking about the damage that's created by losing one tree, and I'm sorry I was late. Each tree displaces hundreds of gallons of water, and those gallons of water are going somewhere, and they're basically not able to be kept in our drainage, and that's the biggest thing. And I know we have some catch basins designed, but I don't believe they're going in the right places either. Anyway.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item on the agenda, we have public hearing on a proposed text amendment to the sign ordinance article 10.4.10 regarding window signs. The proposed text amendment is to remove a permanent window sign shall be classified as a wall sign. Article 10.5.2, on-premises attached signs. C, place a black square in the table in zoning districts C1, C2, PFR, T, and I. The black square means a sign permit is required. Article 10.6, dimensional requirements, number of signs and special conditions. Sign type, number 8, window signs. Area, change 50% to 25% of window area. Article 10.7, exempt signs. Delete 10.c, windows, comma, Article 10.10.1, non-conforming existing signs, and insert all window signs which are not in conformance with the ordinance shall be unlawful 1 year after the passage of the window sign text amendment. Case file number is 2023-00332.
And next time, I'll try to add a few more sentences and maybe another
Appreciate
paragraph.
that very much.
All right, where we are today, the city council asked us to look at window signs. And in our current ordinance, the window signs fall under the wall sign category as far as how much coverage they have, what type of signs they are, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, again, an example of a living, breathing document. Things have changed now. They've got signs in the window, flashing lights, et cetera, et cetera. So we were asked to re-examine that. I'm going to make a long story short for you. If you'll turn to page 60, and that says, page 60 is the beginning of our existing sign ordinance. All right? And then I want you to turn to page 62. And then I'm going to walk you through each of the changes we're making here. So you can see it, the changes. So you'll see 10.4.10, and where a permanent window sign shall be classified as a wall sign, we're eliminating that. We're striking that from the ordinance. Okay. Now if we move to page 64, we're classifying window sign now. Where those red rectangles are, that will be where black squares will be in the new ordinance. And what that says, it is permitted in C1, C2, PFR, which is public facilities, recreation, T is technology, and I is. So it'll be permitted in C1 and C2, the major things we're concerned about. All right? So they are permitted. All right, we'll go to 66. Number 8, window signs. We're striking 50%, and that's the amount of area. It'll go from 50% to 25% of the windows area max. We're also eliminating rope lighting of any kind, okay? And the window signs will only be operational, window shall only be operational during business hours.
Lighted signs. Because if you do a
Window lighting shall only be operational during business hours. Yes, I'm sorry, thank you.
Pat, what
Have you
about,
memorized this? No. Yes.
what about the signs that some realtors are sticking in the windows, especially the condos?
Are they lighted?
They're not lighted, but I tried to get your attention before.
Okay. When,
Like in
I'm on-
residences?
In the condos, yeah.
In residences?
They put them for sale, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give you the official version. The official version is for sale signs are allowed from 6 p.m. on Friday until 6 p.m. on Sunday.
Oh, I realize that.
So that's a POA rule we're sticking with.
No,
If
who do you complain to if they're not following it?
that's a code enforcement issue, so that would go to our code enforcement officers.
Okay.
So do you like that?
It's fine with me.
Yeah.
Because what happened in the past, when we had loads of signs all over the place, you know, when the market was really, really bad, it did not look good. But you go by some of the condos, and they have them in the windows, and I don't think that looks very good either.
Well, and according to the ordinance, that is not legal,
That's what I thought. Okay.
okay?
I just
So-
needed your
That's a code
expertise.
enforcement issue.
So that's a
that
code enforcement issue,
Okay.
all right?
So you need to turn that into our code enforcer, which is who?
We have 2 code enforcement officers now,
Oh, do we?
But they're
okay?
part-time.
Part-time, all right.
Okay.
But
Okay.
turn it
And-
into the
and it's-
building department, they'll
The-
get it to the right spot.
The email address is codeenforcement@diamondhead.ms.gov.
Nice.
Rich, I'll ask a silly question, Pat.
Yes, sir.
Can you
got
email
glass-
that to
You got
us?
glass doors.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Does that fall into this window?
It's a door. It's a door. It's a door. It's a glass door.
It is a glass door. How are you identifying that for them to take their glass door and fill it full of advertisement?
Man, let me think
You
about
have
that.
restrictions on a lot of things.
Right.
But a lot of our businesses have glass doors on them. So they're fixing their open, closed, or they're flashing lights. I've got my kratom or whatever, but it's not identified in anything that we're looking at that I see.
You gonna bail me out here, buddy?
I think so.
All right. Okay, definition of a window sign. Read it, Bo.
All right, the definition of the window sign in here is a window sign is a sign painted, glued, or otherwise affixed to a window for a purpose of being visible from the exterior of the building. So in my opinion, if they're affixing it to the inside of a glass door like that, it's so they can be seen from outside of
It's a
a
window
building,
sign.
and it's a
I
window.
think just terminology, when you hear window,
Yes.
you don't think glass door.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is.
I was actually thinking that earlier when I was sitting there because I was looking at this picture.
Because
It is.
just not being silly, we have signage on that door right there.
Right.
Those are 2 separate doors. Is that currently 25% of that one door because they're separate?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That's
So
why
if you have,
I'm
if
just
you-
looking at it, it just kind of drew my attention, and that's why I raised the question.
If you have 2 windows,
Yeah.
25% of this one, 25% of that one.
So long as they're separated
That's correct, by casing.
casing.
blah, blah.
Yep.
Do
Okay.
we need to address that with the text amendment for the door?
I think we're all right. I think we're all right with it. It would be seen from the exterior, it would be considered a window.
Right. Right, I think that's an administrative interpretation.
And does that include, well, never mind, you said painted. I'm thinking about the chalk signs where restaurants will do a chalk sign, every day or every few days.
No, that wouldn't follow. I mean, that wouldn't.
It'd
And,
be acceptable because it's considered painted, it's paint chalk. It just washes off with water.
right,
Okay.
that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Page 68, strike 10.7C. Oh, I didn't put that in red, my apologies. Strike window C, we're striking that window.
No longer exempt.
It's no longer exempt. That's the other problem. So window signs were exempt. Okay, and then that takes care of it. Nope, I'm sorry. Page 70, 10.10.1, existing non-conforming uses. We put a sunset provision in here. All window signs which are not in conformance with the ordinance shall be unlawful 1 year after the passage of the window sign text amendment. So 1 year after this is passed, you can no longer have window signs. So business owners will have
A year.
a year to conform with the sign, because we want to be cognizant of small business owners and the expenses that they would incur for this, and give them an opportunity to do that.
And so what this does is it allows those signs that currently exist, they are right now non-conforming signs, but they become violations after 1 year. So they can't be non-conforming in perpetuity. Like
Or-
with the sign ordinance that we've got in place right now, we're talking about a change in that with respect to the pole signs. We don't have that sunset provision there.
Or if the
We would here.
business changed ownership.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, but if somebody wanted to put a new one in today, or when, 30
When it
days
passes.
when this passes
Right.
from council approval, they would not be allowed.
Okay. So I had a little argument with a building owner. That has a little mall, and they have different businesses, and one business left, another one came in, and she doesn't think the new business owner should have to change signs. And I said, no, she has to change her signs to meet the ordinance. And
Yes.
she wanted to argue me down. I'm like, well, so.
Well, that's when you send her to me. Okay?
She did talk to a councilman, and he was supposed to look into it, but I don't think he ever got back with her.
Well, that's when, since I,
Send her Pat's way.
I told her, Pat.
okay, very good.
No.
Pat,
She
Pat, I'm
won't-
putting
she
an
won't wanna
over-under
deal with
on-
him for
on
long.
How soon somebody hangs one inside, but not on the window or into the window from the rafters that can be seen.
If it's inside the store, I mean.
That, as far as I'm concerned, that violates the intent of the ordinance.
Understood.
Okay?
we
Don't be
will-
making up
we
scenarios.
look-
I
we'll-
agree.
Don't
We'll
give
look at
anybody
those
any
case by
ideas.
case, and, that's how you determine that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get to a point where you try to chase every contingency.
Correct.
And you are papering yourself with just regulation after regulation, which is not the goal.
So, of course, it's a staff recommendation that you pass that. Then, if you can get somebody to make a motion.
Well, before we do, because
Oh,
this,
okay.
this is a public hearing, so just, I don't believe there are any, but we would just, so for the record, are there any public comments
Any
on the
public
sign
comments?
ordinance?
Jimmy, you want to comment on this?
Thank you.
That's it.
Beautiful.
Good.
Any discussion? here beyond what we've
Questions for
already
me?
had? So, okay, can I get a motion to approve it per staff recommendation?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Do we need a roll call or just,
Just do whatever you want to do.
we'll do roll call.
He
Okay.
likes roll call, let him go,
Yeah.
let him go. Tammy doesn't like it, but you
I'm
do.
gonna say, don't let Lynn do this anymore. So-
Commissioner DeBro,
Aye.
Commissioner Vito, Commissioner Brewer,
Aye.
Commissioner Harwood,
Aye.
Commissioner Leal, Commissioner Bennett,
Aye.
and Chairman Flowers.
Okay, so that passed 5-0. Okay. Okay, the next city council meeting is Tuesday, August the 1st. That's this coming Tuesday. It'll be right here at 6 p.m. Next planning commission meeting is Tuesday, August 27th. It'll be right here. We'll have, what,
22nd.
20, oh, I'm sorry, I said 27th. huh?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, thank you for catching that.
22nd.
22nd, it'll be here. We'll have, I believe, only 2 items on the agenda. One will be Orion's finished product, I believe is what it's going to be. And then the other one would be the tree ordinance, after we do the changes that y'all have made. And that's all I have.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
How you doing?